In the heat of a sweltering August afternoon, Lieutenant Colonel Gabriel Steele found himself in a battle unlike any he had ever encountered. There were no shouts, no gunfire, and no explosions. Instead, the war unfolded in the form of a charming suburban neighborhood known as Maplewood Heights. He had served 3 intense tours overseas, navigating the chaos of foreign lands and leading his squad through perilous terrains in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, as he settled into civilian life with his son, Samuel, he was unprepared for the sources of hostility he would face in his own backyard. A formidable HOA president, Margaret Dunham, who had deemed his son a blight on her precious community. Gabriel had spent years developing an innate sense for danger, a survival instinct that had seen him through close calls and high-stakes scenarios. But nothing in his vast experience could have foreshadowed the antagonist he would encounter in a normally tranquil suburban environment. It all began when 12-year-old Samuel, who had a rare condition known as hydrocephalus, attempted to partake in a school fundraiser. His vibrant spirit remained untouched by the physical burdens he bore from his condition, which often required the use of a mobility device. On that fateful day, Samuel set off to sell candy bars door to door, hopeful to raise money for his school's adaptive sports program. As his petite figure wobbled toward the manicured lawns of Maplewood Heights, he approached the lavish home of Mrs. Dunham. Gabriel had prepared Samuel for this initiative, encouraging him to meet his neighbors and experience the kindness he expected they would show. But Mrs. Dunham's perception was anything but warm. When Samuel approached her house, the usually inviting front door stayed shut. He rang the bell, summoning the woman he had been told was important in this neighborhood. After several knocks, the door creaked open, but not in a friendly manner. With an icy demeanor, Mrs. Dunham peered down at Samuel and swiftly proclaimed, "I don't think you belong here," before slamming the door so firmly that Samuel staggered backward and fell to the ground. This unexpected act caused him to scrape his palms as he lost balance on the decorative tiles leading up to her entryway. Gabriel, witnessing this unfold from a distance, felt the surge of adrenaline course through his veins. His limb rushed toward his son, who was now sitting dazed on the porch, nor do they impact desperately trying to gather himself amidst the candy scattered around him. Fundraiser when you verbally assaulted him and shoved him off your property. Assessing Samuel for injuries while repressing the fury that churned in his gut. I told him he shouldn't be wandering around selling things like that, Gabriel asked. It's against HOA rules, and it's dangerous for someone in his condition, Samuel replied. Dangerous? Although his voice trembled. Gabriel shook his head. She said that people like me bring down property values. The only danger my son faced was from you slamming the door in his face. It was an ache that felt worse than any wound suffered in combat. I'll be reporting this incident to the local authorities. Gabriel felt a sense of duty, not only to protect Samuel, her arms around herself, but to confront the toxic underbelly that struggled to mask the facade that spread across her features. Shaking her head to his son with a makeshift first aid kit from the car, he decided it was time to pay Mrs. Dunham a visit. I know how to make my neighbors uncomfortable. That door, the one that had slammed with such disdain on his heel, and was not just a portal where Samuel was a declaration of war, and Gabriel was prepared to take a stand for his child. He would instead made his way toward the brotherhood he had carried from his military Every experience he had in the military, this experience filled his mind, documented meticulously. The strategic planning, the following the camaraderie of his unit, compiling every and the lessons learned about standing up against oppressive forces and any correspondence. People like Mrs. Dunham used their power to intimidate those they perceived as formal complaints regarding Mrs. Dunham's for selective enforcement of the rules. He rang the doorbell, ensuring to stand within view of her security cameras. As days turned to weeks, I will not be silenced. He was flooded with violation notices for things that ought to have been seen as harmless. Her face shifted from surprise to a defensive glare. In the garage, what do you want? To scrutinize paint colors on their home. Her voice sharp as knives. Each letter bore the heavy-handed stamp of Mrs. Dunham's jurisdiction, but little did she know he was building a case that would expose her for who she really was. Samuel remained his shining light amidst the turmoil. He embodied resilience and an amicable spirit. On days when the notices felt like an avalanche, Gabriel would see Samuel wheel himself through the neighborhood with quiet determination, laughing with neighborhood children, their joy unwavering despite the indifference and hatred they faced from adults. One fateful afternoon, as Samuel returned from school, he looked crestfallen. "Dad," he said quietly, his voice strained. "Mrs. Dunham told me I shouldn't be on the sidewalks because people like me shouldn't be there. She said I might fall and sue the HOA. A burning anger ignited in Gabriel's chest. He had protected those in harm's way under fire, and now he needed to do the same for his son. He documented the incident once again, reaching out to the HOA and other neighbors, rallying them to stand in unity against the arbitrary rules imposed by Mrs. Dunham. Gabriel found unexpected allies among other residents. A former teacher and local business owner, David, who quickly became one of his confidants. As they shared stories over coffee and hamburgers, it became clear that Margaret Dunham's oppressive tactics were not just affecting Samuel. Other families had faced similar trials, with fines for absurd reasons, such as minor landscape adjustments and the occasional noisy pet. It struck Gabriel that perhaps Mrs. Dunham's iron grip on the community could be loosened. As autumn settled in, a transformation was underway. Gabriel organized a gathering at his house, inviting everyone from Maplewood Heights who had experienced Mrs. Dunham's brand of terror. That afternoon, they shared stories, laughter, and their ambitions for the community. Gabriel established a plan. They would confront the HOA together. When the next HOA meeting convened, there was palpable tension in the air. Once within the confines of the community center, Gabriel prepared himself for confrontation. The power dynamics were shifting, and the tables had begun to turn. After the usual agenda items were discussed, Gabriel rose. "I need to address the recent enforcement actions targeting my family and others in this community. It is evident that certain rules are being weaponized to intimidate and discriminate. I have gathered multiple accounts and supporting evidence to present before this assembly." Margaret's face turned an alarming shade of red as he continued, listing complaints and even referencing the Americans with Disabilities Act. The murmurs in the room grew louder. For the first time, others were expressing support for him rather than retreating into silence. "I believe it's high time we reevaluate the leadership of this organization," Gabriel declared, ensuring everyone saw the strength that had built through unity. "It's important that we serve as a community, not a gated fortress of prejudices." Challenged and cornered, Mrs. Dunham attempted to regain control and shut down the meeting with accusations of disorder. However, the tide had turned. The people were now advocating for one another, and prior resentments came pouring forth. More neighbors shared their anguish, revealing the pattern of Mrs. Dunham's selective enforcement. As the crowd grew impassioned, Margaret's standing crumbled. She ultimately sat in stunned silence, watching her grip on power disintegrate. By the time votes were cast, it became clear who the community supported, and the movement for change saw a new dawn. The new board outlined actionable plans that emphasized inclusivity, protections for those with disabilities, and the commitment to keeping in check those who operated from a place of hostility. With each passing week, the community transformed, becoming a model of compassion and support. Months passed, and as the seasons turned, so too did Maplewood Heights. There were fresh playgrounds installed for children of all abilities, social gatherings that shunned exclusivity, and a new sense of community where differences were celebrated. In the midst of this change, Gabriel often mused about how a single moment could ignite a revival of the human spirit, one that delivered him from the mundane dangers of his old life to the complexities of raising his son in a sea of compassion, empathy, and respect for one another. "Dad," Samuel once said on a quiet evening as they watched fireworks sprinkle the night sky during the 4th of July celebration, "will things always be like this?" Gabriel smiled down at his son, feeling a tightness of pride swelling within him. "I hope so, buddy. I think we showed even those who didn't have faith that the community could work together to lift each other up." Their journey had been rocky, but it had forged a new reality for Samuel and the family. Gabriel learned that the strength he had cultivated over the years in service of his country now served another purpose, one of love, growth, and unyielding commitment to a better world for the generations yet to come. Sometimes, he realized, the greatest victories weren't achieved by force, but by the patient and unwavering spirit to bring people together for a common cause. As he watched families laughing together in the park, children playing side by side, whether using crutches or running free, he felt profound satisfaction mixed with gratitude. He understood that not only was he securing a sense of safety for Samuel, he was also lending his experience to build a community filled with resilience, connection, and understanding, teaching all to look beyond the surface and into the depths of shared human experience. The real battle had always been for the soul of the community, and together they rose up and took it back, building bridges where walls had once stood high and veiled. Gabriel thought to himself, "Mission accomplished." And that was a victory more significant than any he could have imagined.